Hi all.
Hi, and hello, Anoop.
Hey Nisha. Hey Anoop.
So we are back again with another episode of Click Brand and Beyond. And since the last episode, something has been playing on my mind. Shankar being somebody who's in the B2B SaaS, and his SaaS is for vendor management and sourcing, etc. So I thought let's flip the question and let's sit on the other side of the table as buyers. If you're going to buy services, let's say services and products, and especially in the B2B scenario for our businesses, how do we evaluate our vendors? How do we evaluate our, the products and services that we buy? And what are the criterias that go through your mind? Again, right, a very Indian context to this, because we all buy stuff. We all buy from multiple places as consumers, of course. But in the business context in India, there are a lot of other considerations. Okay, let's
hear
go
from Shankar.
go to Shankar first and then to Nisha.
Okay. Great question. Not an easy answer, Anoop. But since that I am in the space of selling solutions to obviously buyers, but also help buyers buy better, I should have a say on how buyers should buy. And I always put it on two measures. So I keep telling buyers, whenever you buy something, there are two things that you should be very good at. One, you should really know what you want. Okay, and I think half this procurement can become much clearer if they know what they want, really want. And second, judge a particular vendor on whether they can deliver on what you want. So, first, a stated requirement. And second, can the vendor deliver on the stated requirement? There shouldn't really be anything else, but easier said than done. Correct? Because do I really know what I want? There are so many stakeholders. So when we are in the process of selling a sourcing solution, for example, it's by far restricted to the sourcing team. And I feel decisions are quite easy because the procurement team really knows what they want from a sourcing solution. But then the sourcing and procurement domain is quite wide. So let's say I want to buy a contract solution, or I want to buy an invoicing solution, or I want to buy just a procure to pay solution, then the number of entities that get involved can become 4, 5, 6. So there is the quality team, there is a finance team, there is an operations team, the manufacturing team. Now everyone needs to tell me what needs to be bought. So do buyers really do the due diligence there before they come and approach a vendor? Most often the case is not. So that is where the seller is caught hanging and they are playing to the tune of the buyer. Okay, so a really long answer, but really narrow it down to know what you want and then just focus on can this particular vendor deliver on the stated requirements. Maybe after Nisha, we can just get into some more branches of this particular thing.
Over to Nisha.
Yeah, so just to understand, Shankar, how does a human emotion play? Because in our last episode, we were talking about understanding a human, because end of the day, it is people who buy from people. So a seller has to manage so many emotions, sometimes conflicting, even within the buyer's organization. So how does this entire thing pans out? And is there a simpler way of for a seller to build their systems in such a way that um, they are able to anticipate some of these challenges that may happen and already have put a mitigation plan in place?
So put ourselves in the shoes of a buyer. So when I talk to a salesperson, I need to make sure that that salesperson will have my back when things go wrong. And I need that trust to be built in. Because when I am working for an organization, in the last episode, what we discussed is I need to really deliver under fear of failure. So I want to make sure that that seller is there for me when things don't go right. And right in the case where I have not stated my requirements very well. So it is always said that features rarely sell. It's the trust that a salesperson builds with the buyer. In fact, one of my bosses had told me that if the person I'm selling to, does that person take you to meet his boss, his or her boss? If that person doesn't take you to meet his or her boss, that means you haven't built that trust yet. Correct? And that's something that I seek. So every time I sell, I try to measure, does that buyer trust me? And I think it's the same both ways, right? Trust and relationships sell way more than the features do.
Let me put Shankar on the spot here, right? Shankar, we talk quite often, right? And the last time we had a conversation, it was something about the SEO and how results are showing up on ChatGPT, etc. And you mentioned something, there's a software that I want to take. And there's this guy you have met, who's trying to build a software, etc. let's say you're buying that, what is your criteria? How do you evaluate that? Yes, in a large buying scenario, when a corporate is buying, there are multiple decision makers. But in your company, it's a smaller organization, maybe 2, 3 decision makers. Maybe you are the one deciding things, right? In all our companies, we are probably deciding. We are smaller companies. What is your criteria? What do you would? How would you evaluate? How would you buy something like this? Because it may not be something which is very, very thought out, and months and weeks have been taken, and multiple options have been evaluated. Because see, end of the day, it's a paucity of time too, right? So how do you make that
True.
decision?
Correct. So we don't have the luxury of time for many of the things that we do. But for me, it is like they say, it is what is the outcome of your action. So if anything I buy helps me deliver a better outcome, and invariably for me, I can jot it down. I can write down and say that saying, if I were to buy this, then this is what will happen. And then I know that I have basically managed to do a good deal. It's the same thing when it comes to selling also. It's just that if then kind of a thing. They say if a blank, then a blank, because blank. So if I buy this, then this will happen because this met a certain kind of a requirement. So our buying, I believe, because whenever someone calls me, I put myself in the shoes of a salesperson and talk to them much kinder than what my customers talk to me. In the same way, when I buy something, I put myself in the shoes of a buyer, the way I want a buyer to talk to me. And I just believe that I have that much more clarity and a quicker decision making, hoping that buyers also treat me in that way. So I try to play that role multiple times.
One thing I notice is, as smaller businesses, we may not have the luxury to afford the best of the best because they cost a lot,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And this question is both to you and Nisha. We have to buy what we can afford many times. But in the bracket that we can afford, there might be a lot of people who are selling. How do you trust that this is going to give? And we all have been, bitten once, right? So the second time around, we are trying to figure out what to do. How do we evaluate that? How do you take that gut call that I should buy from this person and not from that person? We are also buying from smaller businesses. Many of them oversell their capabilities compared to what they can deliver. And many of them are over marketing themselves. So given the time, money, and all the other resource constraints that small businesses have, and the inability to afford the best in the world, you have to compromise on certain things. How do you decide that? I know this is a deeper rabbit hole, but it's worth exploring.
Absolutely. Shankar, you go first.
So I would say this, right? As salespeople, we are very passionate about what we are building, and we want to go and communicate to the buyer all the great features that we have. While every salesperson is trained to think like the buyer and deliver on the goals of the buyer, I think invariably 95% of us just lose our way in the sales cycle. And then every demo is about how great this feature is and how they should benefit. As a buyer, the the real challenge is to just cut through the smoke and then just keep getting the seller back to what the buyer wants. And no matter how many people are there, I think good buyers are telling the supplier, don't tell me how great you are. Sometimes don't even tell me how great your customers are. If your solution is good, I will buy. But I decide how credible you are because you have to tell me what exactly I want. So let's stick to my script and not the script of the seller. A lot of the challenges get done that way. In some ways, I think even sellers will benefit. So for me as a seller, I look forward to buyers being very clear on what they want. I think it just helps me do my job faster. Maybe disqualify a customer earlier, which is also gold dust. Right? So I don't spend too much time on a buyer who's very confused on what they want. Okay, so
Right.
that's my take on that.
No, wonderful. I agree with it, Shankar. And I'm actually one of my takeaways is look for that clarity. For me as a buyer, it is mostly the gut feel about a person who's selling it to me. If they're representing a company or if they're representing their business, since I run a small business, oftentimes I'm actually dealing with people until unless I'm dealing with brands like Adobe for my software requirements. I'm dealing with people who are also small businesses. Sometimes they are freelancers or sometimes they have a very small agency business. 5 to 10 employees. And oftentimes I'm talking to the founder. I realize that if I'm able to like that person and not in a very formal setting, in a very informal setting, and because I have a luxury to be able to do that, we have a chat and there are certain criterias in my head that kind of play. And if that person kind of ticks at least 8 to 9 out of 10 boxes, then I'm good to go. It has helped me. And this is something, a strategy, something I have developed over a period of year. After having been bitten, lost a lot of money, I have realized that trust is the biggest thing. How are they going to resolve my problem? So, yes, I completely resonate with the clarity, but there are times when I don't have clarity and I don't know, and I'm just kind of fishing out or doing some shopping. And then the credibility of that person becomes very important to me. This basic honesty, if this, like, you have this conversation and then you're able to figure out the other person. So, yeah.
True,
Yeah.
true. So, and that is why they also say that when you're meeting multiple stakeholders for a particular sale, not everyone's going to get enthused by the features equally because the deliverables are different. But the honesty and the resilience that you're showing during the sales cycle is what gets captured by everyone. Correct. So that's a feature that no one can miss.
Yeah, like you ask some hard questions that kind of throws them off and very intentional, and how they handle it. Are they kind of making it up? If they don't know the answer, are they kind of going round and round in circles, or they are just honest enough to say, look, I really don't know, but let me come back to you. So these are very small things. Everybody knows this, but sometimes people forget to practice because they are in the heat of the moment.
No, we cannot be all very structured and SOP driven, in these
All the
one-on-one
time, yeah.
smaller this thing, right? We have to
The
be very,
human quality.
how should I put it? We have to go with our gut, the feel, etc. A lot of times what I am selling or people I am working with, I've never met in person. Like Shankar, for example, I've never met him in person, right? But we worked on certain things. See, the whole point is, in India, what I have noticed is people are very used to this hyperbole. They inflate what they can achieve for you. And maybe it comes from a place of insecurity or comparing yourself too much with the competition, or watching these marketing videos, and I put that in quotes, which is all about this hard sell. And I've noticed that with a younger crowd a lot more now, that they are trying to oversell. The 20-year-old life coach, for example, is a classic example.
Yes,
Right?
I can't wrap my head around that.
But there are people trying to sell all kinds of things now, and they are borrowing a very Western
template,
which doesn't work very well in India. That is why a lot of these course sellers, for example, are in the negative, are in the red, because they're running these aggressive campaigns, 3 days of free boot camp, and then they, oversell or keep upselling their 20,000, 50,000 rupee course, and then they make it 2,000 rupees, and then they bring you to in that, and they sell you 1 lakh rupee. It works. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but the conversion ratios are much, much smaller. Because see, one large country, so if you throw a rock, somewhere, even in an isolated place, the chances of hitting somebody is very high, right? So population is very, very vast, and you will find buyers for everything. But the way the selling is being done is, I feel it has gone from inflated, outcome expectations to dishonesty at some level. That people are blatantly lying, we'll do this, we'll do that. And all of us have hired employees too. We have also hired vendors, and we have all gone through that cycle of, we will achieve A, B, C, D, and none of that gets done. And yes, both sides. I mean, we also see both sides. There is impatience from the customer that, they really don't know how these things work, that this works, but they expect something. And from the vendors where they say, we are confident, we will give you a guarantee that we will achieve this. And nothing happens. In fact, you're in the negative. We have paid a lot of money and no expectations are met. That happens quite often. So I believe when you're working in India, at some level, this reference check matters. You should be able to call up a couple of people, even if you don't have time, ask, and like, trust, buy, the cycle of like, trust, buy. People can easily fool you on the like side. They can appear very polished, very sophisticated.
Likeable, yes.
But then nothing happens. And there are a lot of intermediaries too, which is another fact. I am selling something which I will never deliver. It's being outsourced to somebody else. right? And it was hilarious when I found somebody in Bangalore to do some creative work for me for my 7-8 years ago, and it turned out somebody sitting in Uttarakhand, a tiny team of 2-3 people sitting in Uttarakhand. Another company was actually delivering the work, and this person was just a broker of kind, intermediary who would go and sell these type of services all over the place. So he was never responsible for anything. A deadline did not goes wrong. He just you know said, shrugged his shoulder and just walked away. So a lot of these different scenarios happen a lot, right? And
Yeah.
there is no right way of doing it. All I can say is experience teaches you hard lessons. You take away from that, and you try and get as much references as possible. That's the only way I have found it to work. Shankar, any formulas to make it work better?
What was that question again? You just
Small vendors, you're working with small vendors because of resource constraints, etc. Many a times those vendors are over inflating the what is achievable. They are overselling. How do you correct that? How do you ensure that you're not getting taken for a ride?
so not always easy to do that, but try to take reference checks wherever possible. But otherwise, I need to get convinced that based on that, on the conversations that we have, somewhere it gets delivered. So when some things are very clearly up my domain where I know what the degrees of freedom are, then it's easy for me to decide. But it's the same situation, right? I try and see that is this a person who can deliver on it, and then make sure that once we start, then everybody is staying focused on the outcome and not just on some deliverable. But we do encounter a lot of cases, like, for example, when we take cases like a VAPT, for example, I want to do a security testing of the solution. There is no template in the market, right? And
Hmm.
anyone can come and say that we'll do it for 50,000, and there's someone who says I'll do it for 3 lakh rupees. So one is, of course, the budget defines a set of suppliers that you do work with, but then again, say what is the outcome that I want? Is it a certificate, or do I really need to make sure that my solution is immune to any security hacks? And then we take a very measured call on that one. Okay, but the rules of the game really don't change. Knowing what you want and then trying your best to ensure the credibility of the supplier and silting the smoke that they generate. These are the three golden rules.
Smoke that they generate. I'm stealing that phrase. That's nice. No, I do believe, there's another factor also now that you have the AIs of the world, Gemini and all those things. Knowing what you want part, what to expect, right? I mean, you're getting into let's say you want to buy some set type of service for marketing or sales or creatives, etc., right? At least you can get a better sense of what should the output look like, what should the thinking look like, what should I expect from the person very very quickly, because you go to Gemini or ChatGPT or whoever, whichever is the favorite AI of the week. Yeah, so 15 minutes later you have that in your hand. You have a sense of direction. At least this is what I should look like, so the smoke being generated can be cleared faster. It's something that I've noticed. Yeah.
True, true.
Anyway, but one last question, right? The generational shift is happening in the workplace. It's happened. People have
Big
been complaining.
time. Big
People
time.
have been complaining. Gen Z this, Gen Alpha that. I don't think Gen Alpha is still there. But then it's partly true. I do agree. The ethics, value system, focus, priorities are all different. Right, the Gen Z being famously not being loyal to the work because they work is just something that fuels their other passions, or travel and other things, and habit of spend. So you don't want to save, you want to live. YOLO, right? You only live once, and those habits being
Yeah,
seen.
on their
So
dad's money. Let the dad retire, though.
I don't know. All I'm saying is, how much of this phenomena are you seeing in your workplaces and in your environment, encountering? And I'm not talking about anecdotal stories from Twitter, because it's all usually American or whatever, right? Indian scenario, because we have a very diverse population, and we have some are very progressive, some are very up there, some are still, coming from a very tiny town. Value systems are very different. How much of this are you seeing in your workplaces, in your experiences? Talk about a
So
curveball.
yeah, it is. It's a family that we are building at Krinati, and I told in the previous session that we had that try to build an entrepreneurial mindset, the one that I have. I wish every employee of mine shared that. but it is growingly difficult to do that. It is not about not being loyal. I think the Gen Z has their priorities, so they are loyal to that. Where we expect them to be loyal, I think that is expecting too much from them.
Yeah. So work is transitional.
It
I
is
mean, you
transitional.
come, and it's also
Incidental.
transactional. It's
And
also transactional.
incidental, amongst other thing, work is just one thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's not, we don't talk about work life balance anymore. The HR managers who were quoting work life balance for the past 20-25 years suddenly are saying, why are you living your life, work more?
Correct.
And that smoke is cleared. The Gen Z is very clear. Work is this, life is this. They don't intersect. I do this, you interfere with my life, I move on. There are a lot of other opportunities available. It's
Yeah.
interesting times we are living in. I kind of threw a googly at the end just to
No, but I
shift
have,
everything.
like, having raised a Gen Z and another Gen Z who's also on the cusp of alpha, I see a very drastic shift. And also having cousins who are millennials. So when the millennials had hit the workplace, everyone was saying the same thing. Millennials this, millennials that. But look how easily they have settled into their 30s and raising a family. I think Gen Z are also going to hit the same, because when more the things change, more they remain the same. So all the social contracts that we have built over millennia, like family and marriage, they are not going to change. It looks like it will, but we all crave that normalcy. And even for Gen Z, I think they have just taken adolescence way too, for granted. So they're still behaving like an adolescent, but one day the shit is going to hit the roof. And then what? The dad is going to retire. Because even now, a lot of Gen Zs, they actually are living in their parental home. They're expecting their parents to meet half the expenses because they can't afford rent or this or that, even if they're living in another city. So this attitude, I'm not sure how long will this go on. Maybe another 5 years? Give them 5 years and then they will come back to the fold, is my view. But of course, that remains to be seen. I think it's just tantrums. One day once they are hit, and then
It reminds me of a series of cartoon images that I saw. It's actually a strip, right? But then one by one. So starts from the era of the caveman.
yeah,
The
yeah.
younger generation is useless. They don't work anymore. This wheel invention is going to ruin them. The next panel shows another caveman saying, look at these idiots sitting and chipping away and writing. This is going to ruin the generation. So on and so forth. Plato, Aristotle, the habit of reading, libraries are going to ruin the generation. Then comes all the way to, newspaper, telegrams, telegrams, reading books is going to
Ruin
make
the
lazy
generation.
people, and newspaper is going to destroy the civilization, and then radio is the end of the world. Telegram, the art of writing will be lost completely after telegrams came up, and then televisions was called the idiot box for the longest time, right? Internet, I mean, so on. So every generational shift that has happened, right?
Yes.
The younger generation is always an idiot. And it's like on the highway, right? Everybody faster than you is a maniac. Everybody slower than you is an idiot. That's what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
I feel
Absolutely.
I feel maybe the internet kind of amplifies these insecurities of the older generation, or the difference in thinking of the older generation too much now. I believe we are being a little unfair to the younger ones or the Gen Z because of amplification of the thinking.
Amplification. Totally agree with
Anyway.
this with you, Anoop, because Gen Z is not very different. They're people just like us. It's just that they're
Yeah.
living in different times.
What are you saying? They don't have two horns and a tail? What do you mean?
Not yet.
On
Some
that
of
note,
them, maybe.
I would like to thank Shankar for being here and kind of suffering us for a while, and of course sharing a lot of good thoughts with us. Right? Thanks, Shankar. Any last thoughts before we wrap up the session?
It was a pleasure talking to both of you, Anup and Nisha. And yeah, look forward to seeing this Click brand and beyond doing extremely well.
Yes,
And hope to
that's
stay
the plan.
connected.
That's the goal in 2026.
Thank you, Shankar. Our goal for the quarter is going from 10 listeners to 12 listeners. We are very ambitious that way. But thanks for being here, and catch you all later. Bye.
Thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.